Hey guys, All Sports 83 here with another edition of XFL Casual, and it's going to be another rapid fire episode where I recap week number 4, give you some power rankings, and then make some predictions for our upcoming week 5 matchups. I'll shoot from the hip a little more than usual because of all of the work travel, so we'll see what else I'll sprinkle in here along the way. It was a unique week of games in week number 4, kind of up and kind of down, and we got a few stories out of the week I'll probably touch on as we move along. As always, this is all opinion-based, so let me know what your opinion is in the comments section below. Alright, you know the drill. Let's get to some recaps. The first game of the week was the Roughnecks at the Guardians, and I'm not going to say much here. I said this was the best team against the worst team, and the outcome really was no surprise here. I was surprised we didn't see more of Francois for Orlando. He looked good when he was in the game a little bit, but then he kind of disappeared. I don't know if it's injury like Terrell Buckley said at the post-game press conference, and maybe that's why we saw Paxton Lynch. I'll be honest, it kind of smelled a little bit like a cover-up. Just looked like a major coaching snafu. There was no discussion about Francois being injured during the game. It just seemed like the coordinator wanted to go with Paxton Lynch. Buckley kind of allowed it to happen. That's at least the way it looked like. That's what it looked like on television. The sideline reporters, everything, all the access that you have with the XFL, you would think that we would have gotten some information about injuries during the game, but I didn't see anything at all. So really, this team is just a mess, and it has been all season. Someone has to be the worst team, but this is really bad. Next week might be their only chance at a win based on the way things are going, but we'll get to that later. As for my prediction, I'm not going to brag about this one. I don't think anybody could have predicted this one. All I'll say is that the Roughnecks seem to be improving, and they're already the best team in the league. This is not good for the rest of the league. They get the easiest win of the season so far, 44-16, and the teams just looked exactly what we thought they were going to look like in this game. In terms of competition, this game was pretty much unwatchable. Next up was the BRAHMAS at the Sea Dragons, and while this game was more competitive, it was somehow less exciting. First, there was just a lot of penalties, and it really slowed the game down, which goes against what the XFL is trying to do. There's nothing you can really do about that except maybe coaching and time and chemistry, but it really showed in this game. Also, both of these teams continue to struggle with finishing drives. I'm going to increasingly be worried about Ben DiNucci this week and moving forward. He's one of the most exciting players in the league, and there's clearly some fun talent in his game, but it's harder to trust him every single week. Even Seattle coach Jim Haslett sort of, quote, joked that he would kill DiNucci over his inability to protect the ball. I just don't know where we go from here with DiNucci. I would have thought that by now, he would have made the adjustments to protect the ball and make sure that he doesn't turn it over and be a little bit more conservative with the ball, because that's really the reason they have 2 losses. However, it's the BRAHMAS that fell the flattest in this game, losing the game 15-6. It's crazy how this team kind of had this personality of running first, kind of ground and pound the opposing defense, and now they can't seem to run the ball at all. They have really no rhythm on offense. And this seems to expose Jack Cohn a little bit. It seems like when he was able to let the running game do its thing, and then he could kind of sprinkle in some high percentage passes in there, it looked good. But without the running game, it just feels like he might be a little bit exposed. It is just 1 week. We'll see what happens coming up here in week 5. But really, he just checks down too much. He kind of holds the ball and throws it away. There is a measure of that I like. But if you do that all the time, you really have no offense, and it really showed against Seattle. I don't mind a defensive game, but this felt more like a game about missed opportunities, especially for the BRAHMAS, and they just missed more of those opportunities, and it resulted in a loss. Maybe the most anticipated game of the week was the Renegades at the Battlehawks, and the reason was the packed house of what's now being called the Battle Dome, which I love that name. And they didn't disappoint. 38,000 strong in St. Louis showed up and made a difference, helping the Battlehawks to a win 24-11. It may have been overplayed by the broadcast team, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a big deal. You could tell the Renegades were affected by the noise, and it made the game very difficult for them. Also, it did seem like the Battlehawks were more comfortable this week. I saw the nice adjustments, especially in the run game after losing a week ago. And maybe the best sign of hope was for this offensive line play. A.J. McCarron wasn't sacked, and let's be real, Arlington has a pretty good defense. So that's a pretty good improvement in a week's time. The problem for the Renegades was another week of almost no offensive production. I think it's crisis mode for Bob Stoops, and he needs to do something to get Arlington and their offense going, and he needs to do it right now. Now, I was happy to get that prediction right, but we'll go ahead and move on to our final game, and we ended the week with the Vipers at the Defenders, and I thought this game was a pretty good watch. But I think it's time to stop judging the Vipers on what they look like on paper. This is not an individual game. Talent seems to be mitigated by a lack of chemistry for the Vipers here. They're really just a mess, and I'm starting to wonder if that starts with head coach Rod Woodson. He seems to be, at this point, the most negative coach in the league. Just kind of calling him like I see him here. I know that the team is 0-4, and that can't be easy. It's got to be frustrating. But everything rises and falls on leadership. And Woodson is getting dangerously close to flat out playing the blame game. It's the refs. It's the cleats. Whatever. This doesn't look good, and it will affect the team as a whole. I'm not sure if this will get much better because the hole might be too big, and it's just hard to be positive at this position in the season. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do anything. He may have lost the handle of this team. I hope I'm wrong about that, but it just doesn't look good in Vegas right now. The Defenders looked really good, though, and I think they want a challenge for that title of best team in the league. I mean, is anyone else circling March 27th on their calendar for the Defenders playing the Roughnecks? DC gets a relatively easy win here, 32-18, and they now may be the best running team in the league. And I think that's aided by that kind of dual threat quarterback personality that they have. They're simply a fun team to watch, and they really know how to confuse opposing defenses. It was a really nice home win for the Defenders. I'm happy to say that I did go 4-0 this week on my predictions, and I now have a season record of 11-5. That makes me feel a little better. I hope to keep the mojo going this week, but before we start predictions, let's go over my power rankings for week number 4, and I'll say that the story of these teams are taking interesting turns. I've already touched on some of that, but let's take a look at my rankings. Number 8 is the Orlando Guardians, and it feels like they're making a permanent home at the bottom here. I like Coach Buckley, but I have to be honest and say that he looks a little lost as a head coach. It doesn't seem like the adjustments he promised have made a big difference outside of last week, where they still lost, and the team just looks dysfunctional. It's a shame, too, because there are some things about this team I think are really interesting. Wide receiver Charleston Rambeau looks like a talented player who could be exciting, and he definitely has his moments each game. Also, it looks like DeAndre Francois might be the quarterback they've been looking for all along, but they kind of already had him, so I'm not really sure what to make of that. Unfortunately, there are just too many holes in this team and too much inexperienced coaching to fill those gaps, so number 8 might be taken up for a while by Orlando. Next is number 7, and it's also unchanged from last week, and that is the Vegas Vipers. I've already shared my concerns about Coach Rod Woodson and his demeanor and how it affects the team, but there are other things that pin the Vipers near the bottom of the rankings, starting with Martavis Bryant. He was supposed to be the banner player for Vegas, but as we sit, he is the 5th best receiver on this team, averaging 1 catch for 2 yards per game. Also, this may sound stupid to some, but I really think that Cashman Field, this whole thing is playing a factor for the Vipers. Not only is the field in bad shape, but who would want to call this home field? It's easily the worst venue in the league and couldn't create any advantage with fans, even if they did show up. I mean, think about it. You don't think the Vipers players are taking a look at what they saw in St. Louis for week number 4 and understanding that their situation is in really bad shape in comparison to what some of these other teams have? I'm not sure what the Vipers can do from this point on. I think it might be too late for them. I think the season's gone 0-4. Playoffs are probably out the window at this point. They'd have to win out and get some help. It just looks really bad in Vegas for the Vipers right now. Number 6 stays with the Arlington Renegades, and it's broken record time. They have no offense. I really thought the change from Drew Plitt to Kyle Stoller at quarterback would have made some improvement, but I haven't seen it yet. They feel like a car that won't start, but you can't figure out why. I mean, they have an experienced coach, a quarterback with success in spring football, and a solid-looking roster. The defense certainly isn't the issue, so I have no idea why they aren't better offensively. If they don't win this week, I'd say the playoffs are out of reach, so I'd look for a pretty desperate team against the Brahmas on Sunday. Now, our first change in the rankings comes at number 5 with the San Antonio Brahmas, and theirs is a story of just losing their way, I think. After the first couple of weeks, we thought we knew who the Brahmas were with a strong running game and a competent quarterback. But strong turned to inconsistent, and competent became too conservative, and now San Antonio is a different team. And I hate to say it, but it seems like a team with very few strengths. I mean, they still have a strong defense, and they still do a pretty good job of protecting the ball, so there might be something for them to rebuild an identity with. I'm not sure if Jack Cohn is operating under orders, but I'd like to see him cut loose a little more to give this team a spark. But again, that could make it worse. So it's a little hard to know where the Brahmas go from number 5 in the rankings. At number 4, the Seattle Sea Dragons might be the most exciting team to watch in the league, partly because of their solid roster and the wild play of Ben DiNucci. But it's also exciting because you don't know if that wild play will end in success or complete disaster for the Sea Dragons. Their 2-2 record is proof that hot and cold play from their quarterback, and it seems just that close. He just seems so close to lighting up the league if he can just minimize those bad plays. Also, unlike Martavis Bryant for the Vipers, Josh Gordon has lived up to expectations in Seattle, and he's produced a good bit. And he's certainly a reason why the Sea Dragons are so competitive each week. This looks like a team that could get hot and really climb the rankings, or if they continue to turn the ball over, they could fall out of playoff contention very quickly. A very interesting watch coming out of Seattle, but right now they're sitting at number 4 in the rankings. Okay, number 3 is the St. Louis Battlehawks, and while I don't want to overreact, after just one game, they finally addressed their biggest issue of protecting the quarterback. It really helped them be more of a two-dimensional team, and it made that running game look exceptional compared to the first 3 games. I've been saying this all year, and I think it's still true. A.J. McCarron is the best leader in the XFL. All of his experience is really bringing the team together, and they seem to handle adversity really well because of that. I said last week that they can't live on the edge all the time, but they rebounded well from a disappointing loss to DC. So I think this is a team with character and balance. If they continue to grow behind the leadership of McCarron and the charisma of Coach Anthony Beck, they could climb the rankings and be in the conversation for a championship. Number 2, the DC Defenders hold steady in this 2 spot after another impressive win against the Vipers. I'll say it's been kind of awesome that Reggie Barlow has done so well at his first crack at the head coaching spotlight. He has handled things seamlessly, and the Defenders are hitting on all cylinders up to this point. I'm even warming up to this idea of DC using this 2-quarterback system. It's not so much to disrupt chemistry, but it certainly puts defenses on their heels. They're not doing it too much. They're doing it seems like maybe a right amount for the kind of weapons these quarterbacks are. I don't know if it'll last, but it's really working right now, and that's a good thing for the Defenders. The next couple of weeks will be a true test for the Defenders, so we'll see how they move in the rankings. But number 2 is the right spot for them after week number 4. And of course, number 1 is the Houston Roughnecks. Where the Defenders are solid in their wins, the Roughnecks have been nothing short of dominating every single game this year. I don't know how else to say it. And Brandon Silvers looks better every single week. Other than the occasional turnover, there aren't many weaknesses in this team. Honestly, I have no other commentary to add here. Wade Phillips should be thrilled as the Roughnecks head for the halfway point in this season. And this is a pretty scary defense, too. Really, all facets of the game, the Roughnecks are at the top of the mountain, and the rest of the league is definitely on notice for sure. Number 1 is the easy choice, and they are kind of the king of the mountain in the rankings this week. All right, it's prediction time for week number 5, and before we cover the first game, I just want to say that looking at all 4 of these matchups, they all look really good. They all look like they're going to be pretty close games. I'll get to why I think so for each matchup, but my first predictions is that this is going to be a great week for the XFL. I think all 4 games are going to be really fun to watch. First up is the Roughnecks and the Sea Dragons on Thursday night at 10:30 on ESPN. Yeah, you get your coffee ready because this is the latest start we've seen so far, and I do think this game is worth watching. The Roughnecks are easily the best team in the league right now, but I would argue that the Sea Dragons are the more tested team with a tougher schedule to this point in the season. As a reference, so far the opponents for the Roughnecks have a combined record of 3-9. The Sea Dragons' opponents, for comparison, are a more respectable with a combined record of 8-8 headed into week number 5. Also, Seattle is playing at home, which could be a boost. It's supposed to be in the upper 40s and dry at kickoff, so fans could come out for this one and support their team. Lastly, for the Sea Dragons, Ben DiNucci has got to show his coach he can be trusted this week. If Seattle can limit the turnovers, this will be a great game. Now, I don't want to forget that Houston is still the best team in the league. Brandon Silvers is looking really great. And that defense loves taking the ball away. And they probably see DiNucci as a turnover waiting to happen. So I'm all about this game. I think there's some interesting storylines. As for the predictions, I still feel like the Roughnecks won't go undefeated on the year, but that first loss won't be in this game. And they get a close win, 32-24. I do think DiNucci restores trust in a losing effort. The momentum is just too high for the Roughnecks right now, and the Sea Dragons will put a good effort in. They'll put in a good fight, but I think they're just going to come up just short. Next is the Defenders at the Battlehawks, and in a Saturday night primetime game at 7 p.m. on FX. Now, this is a big division rematch from just a couple of weeks ago. If you remember, I gave that game the XFL Casuals Game of the Week title, and it really delivered. So I can't help but do it again. This will be Week 5's Game of the Week for XFL Casual. I wish this game was on a sports network or maybe ABC, because I think the ratings will suffer because of March Madness and the network it's on, but it's going to be a terrific game. We know there is bad blood from a couple of weeks ago. Both teams are seeing some success. Best for St. Louis is we finally saw A.J. McCarron stay upright for the whole game last week. And we can't forget the crowd at the Battle Dome. There may be a drop-off in attendance again because of March Madness, and it's hard to match the build-up of that first home game of the season. But there will still be plenty of fans to make the Dome loud and maybe cause some issues for DC. And I think that could be the difference as I give the Battlehawks winning a slugfest 29-26. I'm telling you, those who don't have FX, or they maybe won't be looking for a football game on this network, really don't want to miss out on this one. I think this game is ABC worthy, so football fans should do what it takes to get in front of this one, visit a friend, find a sports restaurant or something, because this is going to be the one to watch. Now, game number 3 is the Guardians at the Vipers at 10 p.m. on FX right after the Defenders Battlehawks game on Saturday night. Clearly, this game will have the lowest ratings of the week because of the network, the time slot, and the records of both teams. But this will be a fun game, I think. Competitive at least. Both of these teams see this game as an opportunity to get that first win, and I think they're both going to play really hard. This one feels like a kind of a back and forth matchup to me. If this game didn't represent two teams without a single win, it could have been the game of the week. But unfortunately, there aren't really any stakes in this game, so both teams are pretty well eliminated from the postseason. But if you just want to watch a competitive game, this is going to be a good one. I don't really know who has the edge, so I'm just going to go with the home team Vipers with a 24-19 win. Again, I'm not confident in that pick. Both teams have concerns, obviously, but this game is worth the watch, if nothing else, to see who gets that first victory of the year. Finally, we come to the last game of the week with the Renegades at the Brahmas on Sunday night at 9 p.m. on ESPN2. And this is another intriguing matchup to cap off week number 5. I kind of feel like this game could have a wild card style playoff atmosphere. Both of these teams need to start winning. The Brahmas are the more desperate team with the 1-3 record, but a win in the division is the right way to start rebounding the season toward the postseason for both of these teams. I'm also kind of hoping that San Antonio fans will want to upstage St. Louis fans and rally a good turnout for their team in the Alamo Dome. If they do, the Brahmas may gain that advantage. As the prediction goes, I have the Brahmas getting a close win at home, 16-13. This just looks like another defensive battle to me. I still have no confidence in the Renegades offense and haven't seen anything to change my mind. As for San Antonio, I know head coach Hines Ward has announced some changes, and I think they make enough adjustments to find a way to get the win and keep their playoff hopes alive. Now, in closing, I just want to comment quickly about the access we get with these XFL broadcasts. We are seeing coach and player relationships, good and bad. We're getting the process of officiating in real time. We're getting player reactions that are genuine to the moment. It really is a side of football that we don't really get to see very often. It's kind of what the XFL is kind of positioned for. And it really felt like this week showed the benefit of that approach to the game. From Jim Haslett's, quote, joking threat to his quarterback after winning, to Rod Woodson's near meltdown reactions on the sideline, and so much more, I really think this is the future of football broadcasting, or it should be. It's a ton of fun to watch on TV because, of this, this approach just looks good on television. I know I've mentioned it before, but it really showed this week, and I wanted to highlight it again. But there you have it, my XFL rapid fire for weeks 4 and 5. Going to turn you loose in the comment section below to tell me what you think about all of these topics. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, have a good one.